So welcome everyone to the AI for Animals webinar speaker series. Today we are featuring Katie Zacarian, who is the CEO and founder of Earth Species Project. Today she's going to be sharing an in-depth look about how cutting-edge AI is unlocking the secrets of animal communication and transforming the way that we can relate to animals in the future. Today, she's going to share ESP's progress over the last year, including key milestones like the creation of NatureLM, a foundation model, which is poised to accelerate the entire field, much like GPT-4 did for the human domain. She'll discuss the challenges of building AI tools for bioacoustics, current bottlenecks, and how ESP is actively collaborating with partners on decoding projects. Additionally, Katie will go over ESP's roadmap for the future, highlighting where the community, you guys, animal advocates, tech professionals, citizen scientists can join in the effort. Katie has had an extensive history with nature and conservation. She's worked tracking technologies for researchers in the Sumatran jungle, focusing on solving practical challenges for conservationists on the ground. And she spends much of her spare time in nature, surfing, stargazing, and studying the systems and organisms that shape our planet. Whether she's swimming with whales or fighting for women's equality in surfing, she has dedicated her life to understanding and listening to the natural world. I'm really happy to welcome Katie here today. We will go through the entire presentation, which will be about 30 minutes. And if you have questions that come up, please put them in the chat. We will go through as many questions as we can before the end of the hour at the end, okay? All right, Katie, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Constance, and the AI for Animals team for inviting me. AI for Animals and Hive are communities to whom I love to listen. I learn so much from you all, and I'm very deeply honored to spend some time with you today. As Constance shared, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Earth Species Project. We're a nonprofit impact organization developing frontier AI research to decode and amplify the voices and intelligences of nature. Our vision of the future is one where humans live in an integrated relationship with Earth species that allows the diversity of life to thrive. And I've prepared a short presentation about our work, including a new never-before-seen demo of our latest model, NatureLM-audio. I hope to keep this talk short so we can get to the bit that I'm most excited about, which is to discuss these topics together and for me to listen and learn from this incredible group of people. So for anyone who's heard me talk before, you'll know that I love language, and that's what I want to talk to you about today is language. It's a very common topic in AI, and it plays many different roles in our work, from computer languages to natural language processing to large language models, or LLMs. And it's safe to say that language as a very broad category, there's plenty of people who can talk about many different aspects of language, from writing and speaking to developing and modeling. And when I speak about language, I like to focus on a very specific part of language, and that is listening. I'm fascinated by listening because as a form of observation, it is a cornerstone of science. And listening is the cornerstone of my job. I'm the CEO of an impact organization operating in an emergent field that brings together AI research scientists and engineers, biologists, conservationists, linguists, philosophers and ethicists, activists, community organizers, legal scholars, and so many more fields all together professionally, academically, and collaboratively. And each field of expertise has its own nuances, protocols, jargon, abbreviations, and expectations. And so for this reason, I sometimes joke that when we say decoding animal communication, this also technically means decoding the humans across multiple species. And for me, this snapshot is an incredible reflection of the interdisciplinary collaborative nature of our emergent field. This is where I met Constance at a 2023 conference organized by Peter Singer, Faisi, Leone Bassart, and Theo Hogendorf and Hagendorf. It brought together so many incredible people, many of whom are part of this awesome AI for Animals community. A core part of my daily work is enabling collaborations inside and outside of our organization. As you all know, it is simply not possible for anyone to be a leading contributor in all of the fields necessary to make our vision a reality, which means I spend a lot of my time listening. And so for today, I plan to share a few stories about listening with you. And these few stories I want to start with are about listening to animals. So many of you already know the following, but just in case, I wanted to take a walk down history lane. Listening to animals has been a human fascination for millennia, as long as humans and animals have shared the earth. Early ancestors of the people that came to be referred to as the Apache by Spanish settlers in the Americas shared oral tradition, stories communicating directly with ravens, a corvid species of bird you see on the slide. And many First Nations people include corvids in their mythologies. In the Quran, Solomon speaks of the language of the birds, about which Sufi poet Attar of Nishapur wrote the epic poem, The Conference of the Birds. And all of these examples are hundreds to thousands of years before an 8-year-old Ludwig Koch at the Frankfurt Zoo in Germany made the first known recording of birdsong in the world. It was 1889 on the first recording device made available for retail consumers, the Edison cylinder. And 136 years after the Edison cylinder, we have our own portable Conference of the Birds and apps on our phones. We can hear their songs amidst the blaring cityscape, identify them by their scientific names without book or binoculars, just the perfectly honed lens of the phone in your pocket. This is what technology does in our world, from the printing press to the ceramic screen to powerful algorithms running on sophisticated servers supported by the remarkable feat of engineering. We now find it so boring, we just call it the grid. Technology is frequently said to power innovation, but I don't think so. Technology empowers our curiosity, and our curiosity, science, by any other name, powers innovation. And as somebody who's worked at the intersection of conservation and technology, this deeply resonates. I absolutely love Merlin bird identification app. And it seems impossible to me that humans would walk the natural earth and not wonder about the inner lives and experiences of the species that we share it with. In fact, while I was making this presentation, I stopped to use Merlin to identify the call of the red-crested cardinal and the red-vented bulbul. And like Ludwig at the Frankfurt Zoo, I recorded the call of the common myna bird. They're all just singing around me right now. The Edison cylinder opened a doorway. Acoustic recordings of our ecosystems have been improving for decades. Even just 30 years ago, as shared by the late, great Karen Bacher in the book, The Sounds of Life, the equipment required for field recordings could fill a small minivan. Wax cylinders and heavy reels of magnetic tape have over time been replaced by portable, lightweight, inexpensive, long-lasting digital sensors. And these sensors extend our abilities as human beings to perceive and discover the world around us like never before. And the findings have been extraordinary. We have discovered that coral larvae, not even a few millimeters in length, with no brain and no central nervous system, can actually hear the sounds of their preferred reef and decide where they want to move. Far from being pushed out into the ocean currents and randomly landing somewhere, researchers have found that coral larvae listen and choose a good place to settle and swim there. They usually select healthy coral reefs from unhealthy ones, which has led to some really innovative science-based wildlife rehabilitation strategies. This is the Amazonian river turtle, once thought to be entirely mute. But research by biologist Camila Ferreira discovered that, in fact, they make 200 distinct sounds, and that mother turtles actually talk to their babies before they hatch. In 2024, researchers found that elephants have names. So do marmosets. So do gray parrots. Biologists discovered that belugas have a come back call for their curious calves. These discoveries and so many more are just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. We know so much, but we've barely scratched the surface. Science is about observation, looking, feeling, hearing, listening in any way that the technology allows. And at ESP, our research is solely focused on advancing that ability. Communication, language really is the catalyzing force of relationships and connection. The world is awash in communication. It's happening around us all the time. And AI is going to make it inevitable to translate animal communication, to listen to the rest of nature so that the diversity of all species can thrive. The underlying thesis of our work is that one of the biggest drivers of the polycrisis is that humans and many of our species system of governance, law, finance, and culture are disconnected from the rest of nature. Many of us see ourselves and our species as separate, privileged, better than, isolated, and independent from every other species on Earth. And the systems we've established reflect those worldviews. First Species Project is a nonprofit organization aiming to focus on fundamental research and impact, not productization with profit requirements or incentives. Our goal is not to talk to animals, but instead believe that developing the ability to listen and learn at very fine detail and huge scale might be one of the most important problems we can solve. And to do so, we take an AI-first approach similar to DeepMind with AlphaFold, contributing novel AI research, science, and engineering. We started working on this project in 2017 with a deep sense of curiosity, awe, wonder, respect, urgency, and optimism. We are encouraged to begin when we saw exponential developments in large language model, particularly two papers, Word2Vec and Attention is All You Need, which demonstrated translation, for lack of a better term, between languages and concepts without a dictionary. We began by listening to dozens of biologists who shared with us common challenges faced in analyzing their data, revealing patterns across scientific fields, taxonomies, and ecosystems, where foundational machine learning building blocks could provide step changes, challenges like denoising, detection, classification, and data scarcity. A key observation made by AI research scientist Masato Hagiwara back in 2022 is, how do you measure performance with a machine learning model when we're starting with a relatively small amount of data? Unlike language processing for humans, animal sounds do not have an entire internet's worth of data to use as specimens to create benchmarks. So Masato's work is a step forward for researchers by giving us benchmarks similar to glue and superglue, which are very well known in natural language processing for humans. Beans, or the benchmark of animal sounds, was developed by Masato in 2022, and it's the first benchmark of animal sounds. It contains 12 data sets, including birds, land and marine mammals, frogs and toads, and insects. And it was designed to be domain agnostic and run across many different species. As part of our research plan, we hypothesized that large foundation models, which have worked so well in many domains, including human language, would work very well with animal signals. And so Masato also put together the first foundation model for animal sounds, the Animal Vocalization Encoder based on self-supervision, or AVs, in ICASP 2023. This model was inspired by Hubert, a well-known model for human speech. And to our knowledge, AVs was the first foundation model for animal signals and performs very well for tasks including detection and classification. Since then, David Robinson, a machine learning researcher based in Brisbane, Australia, extended the work of AVs with a multimodal foundation model, Biolingual. First, Robinson aggregated a massive bioacoustic archive into a single language audio data set called Animal Speak, consisting of acoustic and textual data. The model was trained on iNaturalist, Animal Sound Archive, the Watkins Marine Database, Xenocanto, which many of you might know. From there, David developed a new state-of-the-art model, Biolingual, which allows ecologists, conservationists, AI researchers, and more of any kind to retrieve animal sounds with natural language queries, meaning you can type in with words, show me 4 sperm whales, 2 fluking, 2 rolling on their side with overlapping E and identities code as heard, and it'll provide you an example. David Robinson, who I mentioned, was not affiliated with ESP at the time when he used Masato's foundation model, foundational research, beans and AVs, to build animal speak in Biolingual. But in 2024, he joined us full-time to work on the next evolution of Biolingual, NatureLM-audio, the first large audio language model for animal sounds, which some of you may know and may have caught our demo or our explainer on our Discord channel. But if not, I'll explain a little bit about it here. This model is capable of detecting and classifying thousands of species, which represents a giant leap forward for the field. Applying modern AI research approach to ethology, it's trained on billions of parameters of human speech, music, environmental sounds, and animal sounds. We hypothesized that there would be some transfer learning from the human data sets to the animal domain, and we were correct. The model exhibits zero-shot learning, a capacity to generalize to identify species it has not seen before and answer questions that it has not been trained to respond to. We found out last week that the paper has been accepted to the International Conference on Learning Representation, ICLEAR, a prestigious AI conference, which is really exciting. But I'm really, really excited to share with this community this demo, which has not been seen before. It's moderated by ESP AI research scientist and behavioral ecologist Sarah Keene. It's a long video. It's nearly 6 minutes long, so I won't play the whole thing. We'll post it elsewhere. But I want to show you a significant amount so you can grasp what I'm talking about here.
So a common scenario that I encounter as an ethologist is I'll be given an audio file and I'll have very little information about what it contains. And so the first things that I want to ask are, first, what's in the recording? And then also, what can it tell us about animal language or animal communication? So here's how I would use NatureLM to begin asking and answering those questions. Here's our web interface. I'll go ahead and upload a file. So this is an audio file that I got from an online database. So we have the ground truth. We know for sure it contains a carrion crow. And what's happening here is we have 2 lookout crows that are alarm calling at passersby, and it was recorded in Paris. So we can go back to our tab and start talking to the model. And let's start off just giving the basic description. Let's caption the audio using common names and describing signal types being used. So great, it says correctly call an alarm call of a carrion crow. I'm going to clear the context so the model doesn't remember. And now I want to ask it something it wasn't explicitly trained on. Let's estimate the number of birds calling because the caption noted that there are 2 of them. Great, it says 2. And let's try one more. I want to get at the geographic location, so I'll ask, where would one find this species? Europe, and I like that answer. We saw it was recorded in Paris, but this is a species who has a distribution across the continent of Europe. So that's how we can go deep on a single file and get a good idea of what's happening in one interaction. Typically, I want to analyze many files at once. So I'll go over to this batch option, and I'm going to upload many different recordings that some collaborators gave me. And these are soundscapes recorded in Japan. So I don't know what to expect. I'll tell the model, these are recordings from Japan. And then I'll do the same thing. Let's say caption the audio using common names and describing signal types. So I've also selected this option for a detailed LLM summary, and I'm asking a few things that are specific to this project. I'm especially interested in relative abundance and co-occurrence of different species. And then also I'm curious if it can tell us the habitat type. So we can go down here to our output. First, we have a summary showing the captions of each of the different audio files, and it's commenting when different species occur together. And looking at our LLM summary, this is great. So it says the species that are most common. And I'm happy to see it detected amphibian species because I know this microphone was close to a river. So that's great. And this tree frog is common there. And yeah, then it goes into detail about the other things that I asked. So that's one way I can start to compare between recording sites, for example. And another potential task I would want to do with this data is to give the model one very long file and figure out when interesting events occur. So getting the start and stop times. So here's an option to upload a long recording, and I'll give it.
All right, so I'm going to
just soundscape clip.
I'm going to pause this because it's quite long, but we will upload the rest of this. Probably we'll share it on our different channels and likely on YouTube and on Discord. Yeah, I'm just so happy to be able to share this with you. This is just the beginning. The rules that govern modern AI dictate that this model will only get better. Today it works on bioacoustic data, but in the future it will be multimodal. It will layer in video, biologger data. It will have in-context learning and more. And this is what the Edison cylinder has become. The Edison cylinder is a passive acoustic monitoring device in a tree capturing, billions of data points. And the phonograph is a large language model. So while we're going to continue to launch increasingly sophisticated LLMs to support animal communication research across species and tasks, we're also going to continue to go deep on our research partnerships to continue to make progress on decoding animal language and communication. That's like the one pictured here. This is a research collaboration that we have with some folks studying the vocal behavior of crow species in Spain. These crow species, the carrion crow that Sarah mentioned in that recording, they exhibit a unique allocare behavior from most corvid species. They rear their young communally. And here we are with some of our researchers. Oops. Who has access to NatureLM? Okay. Yeah, so I'll get to that in a little bit, talking about what the future holds for NatureLM. I want to talk about the challenges in this work. There are many. AI thrives on big data, and ethological data is relatively more challenging to collect than scraping the internet. There's also no ground truth. You need very strong partnerships in the ethology community. Another critical challenge, and I bring up this photo of esteemed philosophers, ethicists, legal scholars, advocates back up very intentionally, is that we need to develop responsible use and safety principles and codes of practice, as well as for this interdisciplinary field to establish a set of guardrails, norms, and regulations. NatureLM has the potential to be a massive accelerant across many fields, speeding up the pace of discovery, automating many tedious, time-consuming, and expensive tasks, and making it possible in real time to make effective area-based conservation management decisions. And that's just the beginning. And while there are tremendous opportunities, new technological capabilities also present enormous risk and are fraught with ethical concerns, many of which have been described in papers and presentations by members of this incredible community. So the field of AI ethics has laid the groundwork, but as many of you already know, most of the frameworks are intentionally anthropocentric or completely naive to non-human animals. And so we've been working on this really since the beginning, a strong sense of responsibility, and then more deeply since the beginning of last year. And we're excited to continue to make progress in earnest in 2025. Figuring out this in particular is paramount and requires deep collaborative efforts across many different stakeholders, of which surely this community will be part. Another critical challenge will be how to leverage new scientific discoveries for system scale change. And so this is a working theory of change, which some of you may have seen if you went to the AI and Animals conference last year. And we're beginning many different pilot programs, not many, but a few pilot programs this year to start to probe social science interventions, partnerships, and programs that will engender the type of future states that we want to live in as a result of this research. So this is where I talk about the future and answer some of your questions, the one that you just raised, Constance. And I just want to say, imagine any story you've ever heard about Earth's beyond, Earth's human species. It could be deforestation, farming, wildlife trafficking, or the effects of climate change. In these stories, animals are always the object or the subject, never the narrator or the reporter. And to achieve that level of listening and observation, we need hundreds of excellent scientists, community organizers, activists, legal scholars, and so on across dozens of fields. We need contributors, and that's our vision. Massive collaboration. So whether you are a research engineer, research scientist, you collect biological data, you're an activist, an artist, community builder, this field is growing and recruiting, and this mission will be achieved when there are more of us involved, not when there are less. It's only achieved when we listen and we collaborate. So if you're interested in getting involved, here are the things that you can do today. If you collect biological data, consider contributing it to open libraries like Xenocanto, Macaulay Library, Freesound. If you have a technical background, we have several projects on our GitHub, like Voxaboxen, where you can help us to improve our models. We'll be posting on Discord community new ways to start testing and learning about NatureLM. We'll also be engaging the community around responsible use and safety. And so my answer to my question is stay tuned. We do have plans on having the community involved in both testing and improving this model. With many of species, especially fish, insects, and so many invertebrates, we're still on the Edison cylinder in terms of our capacity to listen. AI is going to make it inevitable to translate animal communication to better listen and learn from the rest of nature across the tree of life. And with any animal, we have a responsibility to ask how they are doing in their own terms. Where are they? What are they observing? What do they know that we don't know yet? And these answers will provide so much more than just a sensor can. And for biologists and conservationists on the ground, answers can have massive outcomes. These questions might have very simple answers if only we could just listen. So with that, I am done and I have time for questions. Before I open for questions, in keeping with the goal of openness and listening, I put an email address here on the screen. Our work has so many disciplines involved. And because I'm not an AI researcher and I'm not a co-author on these papers, I wanted to make sure that if you wanted to engage further with our research team, you can both email this email address, or if you're interested in getting involved in responsible use and safety, this is a QR code for our Discord community and this email address. So with that, I'll keep that up for a little bit, and we can open for questions.
All right, thank you so much, Katie, for sharing that. I love the demo. It's one thing to describe what NatureLM is, and then it's another thing to actually watch it in action. So yeah, really honored that we got to get a glimpse of that demo. Well, we have a good amount of time for questions here. I'll start out with mine. Who has access to NatureLM right now, and what is the future rollout going to look like?
It's a great question. Currently, our code and our paper is available on archive. I can share it with you all, or you can search for it, just NatureLM-audio. And a big part of this is figuring out how do we support building the field while also making sure that we're acting in responsibility and considering safety. So I guess we're currently figuring out those two bits. I guess one of the things that we know and we want is for the field to help us improve this model, and precision matters, and being able to have it be increasingly high performing. This is the backbone of our research program, like GPT. So you could think of this as like GPT-1, and we're going to continue to make improvements. And so yeah, it's a sort of a non-answer, but I guess the answer is stay tuned, and we certainly intend to have it available for the community to use in their work. And by that, I mean, I guess a big question that comes up is how broadly do you want this model to be used? And of course, there are questions around unintended consequences, bad actors, those who may not be operating in a way where the outcomes of their using NatureLM would be aligned with our vision. So there's a lot of questions to answer, and I guess to say, like, we definitely want to, there's two things like that we're trying to balance with making it available and continuing to improve the model. And I hope you take from that just the healthy amount of responsibility that we all have on this call to contributing to that.
Yeah, I remember you gave me the example once of like poachers potentially like creating synthetic animal sounds to lure like targets to their area. And I had just never really considered that before. Like if we put tools out there, yeah, we can do more to learn about animals and protect them, but then also it can become an arms race where, yeah, we have to protect the animals faster than the poachers can hunt them. Malik had his hand raised. Do you want to just ask your question?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm coming from AI background, and I have like just simple questions that, okay, this is the GPT thing you're working on right now. I'm curious that, like, number one, how are you gathering the data and how you're putting it all together? And second, it's like I need to look it up, but then I already joined the Discord, but do you know, like, how, if I were to contribute as an engineer, like, who is the best person to talk to, and who are like, some good people who can just get me started on something?
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad I'll answer both the questions. Thank you for those. On the first one, there is a movement, longstanding movement in behavioral ecology towards open science. And so there's some incredible libraries that we've used to build our benchmarks that anyone can play with. So there's Xenocanto, there's the Macaulay Library, there's Freesound, there's the Watkins Marine Database. Those are just a few. And if you go to some of our papers, we cite those databases. And as well, we've put some of those databases into our benchmarks. So Beans and Animal Speak are two benchmark data sets that you can also work with. And then furthermore, we work directly on deeper partnerships with research scientists, both who are interested in sharing their data to contribute to these models, or we are gathering like new data that has not yet been recorded. and they contribute to both these decode projects as well as our existing models. And so all of those data sets that are offered to be shared broadly, publicly, are on our GitHub. So our GitHub is a great place to go. You can see the projects where you can get started. You can make pull requests and help us improve voxaboxen, which is a tool used for detecting and drawing window boxes around large data sets. We also have a project around denoising data sets. And there are others. And so those are surfing around our GitHub is another great way. And of course, our research science and engineering team are on our Discord channel. And so these are, and it's managed by an incredible community manager, Danilo. I'm not sure if he's on this call. And so if there are things that you're interested in, ways to get started, like we have a really vibrant Discord community that I hope will, we can, harness your enthusiasm and passion and experience to contribute to this work. That's the dream, to continue to build this field with all of us. So I hope, does that answer your questions?
I think it was pretty thorough. It also kind of goes into this other question that we have here from Roger Thompson about whether you're tapping into undergraduate research communities who are collecting this sort of data.
Yes. Thanks. Undergraduate, graduate, citizen science, naturalists, retired ethologists. Yes, and those who have contributed their data to make it publicly available is fantastic, using the libraries I just mentioned. We also work, like I said, on these decode projects with PIs at many different universities. And lastly, I'll say this year we plan to launch a really ambitious PhD, postdoc, and internship program for AI research scientists and engineers to contribute to our work. And so stay tuned for that. And so whether they're, if they are pursuing a career in academia, there'll be some awesome opportunities to work on this directly with us. I hope I answered that question, but yes. And I also get contacted by a lot of undergraduates and graduates. And one of the things that I think is important and that we want to, you may have seen on our theory of change, is building the field, which could mean lots of different things. And I think one of the things that it means to us is that this interdisciplinary field becomes a place that people know that they can study and also pursue a career. So creating more opportunities for people who have passions that are at that intersection, that are part of this massive collaboration, that there are ways to get involved. And if they are choosing to if they want to pursue a career in it, that there are opportunities to do so. And that's a big sort of agenda for us, is building the field, making that possible as a stakeholder in this space.
Yeah, and AI for Animals is definitely like right beside you in trying to build up that field and incentivize using technology to improve the lives of animals, not just as an academic interest or as a moral issue, but something that is aligned with the rest of the way that society functions. And we have to change a lot of ways that incentives work in order to do that. So here's a question from Rachel. Can you give a couple examples of how the decoding of animal communication may get better Can you give a couple examples of how the decoding of animal communication may get better used to achieve your ultimate goals? Are you thinking of putting microphones around a large area and synthesizing how animals' communities are talking, and then say comparing an undisturbed forest versus one where logging is happening? So yeah, can you just give us paint us a picture of a use case?
Yeah, I guess my answer, it's going to be a multi-part answer. And then the thing I want to lead with is the imagination is limitless. And so the more that people broadly understand what the capacities are for this technology, the better from where you sit, you will be able to think through how it can drive impact. So based on the answers I'm going to provide are the result of conversations with conservation biologists, legal scholars, social scientists, community activists, and so on. But how somebody when I talk to artists, for example, or those who are thinking about animals as stakeholders and thinking about how an individual animal might leverage this themselves, where they actually are having a say in how this gets leveraged. So that's all to say, these are just to get you inspired and think. But so I wouldn't call it low-hanging fruit, but some of the things that are going to be in the very near term feasible through the use of these models are tasks that are commonly manual, expensive, tedious, and hard to do in conservation biology. So a lot of the population ecology tasks, estimating presence of a species, labeling that species by its, a taxonomy, and then also understanding how many individuals are present, how that number is changing, and then also too, what is their behavior? So what is their vocal behavior? Can we classify their different social structure? Can we just take out noise from the recording? Believe it or not, as you can imagine, there's a lot of background noise in these recordings. It's commonly called the cocktail party problem. How do you separate the sound that you're interested in or the behavior you're interested in from all the rest of it? And that's a huge issue for human speech and music as well as animal sounds. And so just doing that, these are low-hanging fruit, kind of, so to speak, things that these models are very, very good at doing, and they're transferring what we're learning in the human domain to the animal domain very well. That's kind of what I was sharing about the zero-shot capabilities of NatureLM. Now, I will say, NatureLM is not performing 100%. That's very important to say. This is GPT-1. So, but it's performing way better than random. So it's demonstrating these emerging capabilities. I think so going beyond sort of these low-hanging fruit tasks, you might also be able to understand, okay, what are human impacts on the environment and how is it impacting animals' behavior change? And we hear this a lot from conservation biologists who work with marine mammal species who rely so much on acoustic communication for their livelihood, and where there's the presence of a lot of ocean sound. So by being able to study a change in behavior from a quiet ocean to a noisy ocean, but being able to classify all those behaviors is a very difficult task. So that's kind of we could put conservation biology, for lack of a better way of just kind of lump it together. And then there's all the stuff in the social sciences, where we already are working in so many, what was kind of considered the niche at one time, but I don't know if people here have grasped how these rights of nature and personhood, habeas corpus sort of cases for animals have shifted. These ideas that animals should have a say in governance. These kind of emergent practices on the systems and how animals can have a voice at the table. This is kind of another interesting way that not interesting, but critical way that we see that scientific discovery and demonstration of communication and diverse intelligence can lend itself to systems level change. And so, yes, it's the tactical, having more data to be able to, have these models perform better, but really it's both to the end of both providing better conservation strategies as well as completely upending these systems that put ourselves in the situation we're in now. So yeah, and as I'll say, all of that requires massive collaboration. I mentioned this in the presentation. Our focus is developing AI first, research, which means we do have ethologists on staff. We do have people who come from the policy sustainability space, but really not any one of these fields can make a difference alone. It's going to require like massive interdisciplinary collaboration, and that is like a really key like ethos of our organization is broad collaboration as much as possible. So
what would you say are like your most immediate bottlenecks to impact right now?
Yeah, I liked this question. Or like when you share with me that question at a time, and I was thinking like, what are the key kind of challenges? And of course, along the way, like where we've gotten, last year was a very big year for us. We raised a significant amount of funding to support the development of the AI research and hiring of the talent who have the experience to do so. I think, another thing we accomplished last year was building out our theory of change and our strategy, which we presented an initial draft of at your conference last year. And I think, I guess we've started things and now we have to execute. So our bottlenecks will continue to be fundraising. It'll continue to be just the challenges inherent in this work, and I mentioned several of them. But I guess I'm just very optimistic going into this year based off of last year. And I just see an orientation towards collaboration and this like shared vision that so many of us have, and it makes me very, very optimistic, especially now. Just building the resources to fuel the engine of impact, really. Again, that's like kind of a non-answer, but I feel like fairly like a lot of bottlenecks have been removed. And they're not necessarily bottlenecks, but they're just challenges inherent in building and that we're all experiencing in an emergent field and building young organizations, and so feels like got a little bit of wind at our backs.
It does. It feels like an exciting year. The conference has like grown like little by little every year, and I'm starting to see more and more familiar names around. It really feels like we're stretching out into the world.
It's a really amazing community that you've built and an incredible platform for this interdisciplinary work. And so important, and I'm really glad that there's a space for it and that it's going to be in the Bay Area will be really exciting this time around.
Yep. And for those of you in the Bay Area, we do have monthly meetups around like AI and animals. And we usually have a speaker at each of these meetups. We also have like some more social events. I will share the link to join the Slack community in case you guys aren't part of it, but we share all the events on the Bay Area channel. We have time for like maybe like 2 or 3 more questions before we wrap things up.
I see one I just want to clarify. A couple of people asked about the multimodality of our models, whether NatureLM will ever take into account video, for example, or movement. And actually we had a paper that I think it's, we published a paper last year, the first benchmark of animal movements called Bebe. And so certainly movement data, accelerometry data, gyroscope data, all of the incredible sensors that are now on these lightweight, portable, tiny devices that are animal-borne tags. Certainly building those into the model. And then, of course, video. So yeah, the answer is yes. That's what's so incredible about the architecture of these models is we can build in multimodality and continue to improve. So yes.
Does your team actually like develop hardware as well?
No, not currently, but there are a lot of things we've learned about using different kinds of hardware. And actually I have experience working in hardware development. So the things we've learned about ways to optimize the type of data capture through the various kinds of sensors that are available, and what kind of settings and so on. And so we've been working a lot with archival data up to this point, and then so now we want to take a much bigger role in ensuring that at least the data that we capture, we can minimize as much as possible with cleaning up that data through, being strategic about the data capture. But no, we don't. And hats off to it's incredible work. I find that ethologists and tinkerers, and there's some of the most inventive, innovative scientists out there building these devices. It's incredible. So.
We have one offer of help from Green Armada, who says that they do a lot of underwater species observation with their sailboats, and asking what regions you might be missing records from, because they can form a bridge between the ground and your tool.
Thank you.
So do you have any like insight on like what regions of like underwater animals you might be missing samples from? I don't know if you know it like that granular.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think the answer is I don't know, but certainly there are a lot of gaps, and it brings up the question around biases in the data, which is a very common topic in AI ethics, and just thinking about how, if we have dolphin data from bottlenose dolphins in very specific geographies, giving respect to individuality and culture and so on, if our models actually will be able to work broadly. The answer is probably yes with scale and how these models work, but just sort of thinking about how we just might be able to have data representative across geographies. I think one of the things that I wanted to come into this conversation with is like, if you have data, how do you contribute it? I shared some of the open source libraries that are incredible and would want to like just call out and direct people there, because they are so great, and they don't just help us, they help all of sort of the field of biology benefit. And there's been a lot of support for those and investment in them. So
yeah, and people can always join the Earth Species Project Discord and then just like ask for assistance, like, hey, I have these samples, where should I upload them? And people are really responsive on that community. And then also I want to point out that for people that are interested in joining in on projects, there is a specific area on the bottom of the Discord channels that is labeled open projects that you can look through. Okay, well, I think that's all the time that we have for questions. I just want to make one announcement to everyone, which is that we are having the AI for Animals conference on March 1st to 2nd in Berkeley, and there is a code for the people that attended this webinar, and also for people that are like part of the Earth Species Project Network. It's ESP 2025. I'll send it in the chat, and I'll also send it in in a follow-up email. And yeah, it would be wonderful to have you guys there. We're trying to gather a lot of people from the interspecies decoding community together. We'll have representatives from Project SETI, most likely Earth Species Project, and some others that are more involved with like companion animal translation, which is actually like a for-profit field. It's interesting how that's divided. Yeah, and also we are having another webinar series coming up soon. It'll be lightning talks featuring 3 different speakers. One talking about like genetic basis of welfare, one talking about scientific reporting on animal research, and another on decoding whale communications. So I will put a link to that next event in the follow-up email as well. And yeah, thank you all so much for coming and being a part of this community. I'm really excited to see what we'll all achieve together in this new year. So thank you so much for coming, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was so nice to spend some time with you all today.